Welcome to another episode of Up Next in Commerce. I'm your host, Stephanie Postles, CEO at Mission. Today, joining us, we have Jiake Liu, who's a co-founder and CEO at Outer. Jiake, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Stephanie. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So I was looking at your LinkedIn, and there was a funny tagline where it was saying like where you were born, and then you moved to Shenzhen, and then you moved to Alabama, and then LA. And I kind of wanted to start there and hear a bit about your childhood and your worldly adventures.
Sure. Happy to. So I was born in China, a small town in the Zhejiang province called Jinyun. No one has ever heard of it, but it's it's pretty remote. It's not very developed, but it's beautiful. The environment is great. In fact, now that region is one of the focused areas for the Chinese government to really push for the environmental protection agenda that they have rightfully. And I moved out of town when I was pretty young, I think 4 or 5 years old, to a town that probably a lot of people have heard of it. It's called Shenzhen in Guangdong. It's basically borders Hong Kong and some of the largest tech companies in China like Tencent, Foxconn. They have a huge factory / town within the city over there. It's kind of like the silicon capital of China. So it was there throughout elementary school, and then moved out of Shenzhen into yet another small town, this time in America, in Huntsville, Alabama. Yep. Which is, a pretty interesting place given that it's in the South, but it's, a aerospace academic town. NASA has a, I guess like an office there, Marshall Space Flight Center. There's a lot of government contractor, military, a lot of literally, like rocket scientists there. That's why my dad moved there. So I was there for middle school, high school, college, got a degree in computer engineering, thinking I was going to go work for NASA. That was my dream. And then moved out to LA because I had a short stint at a video game company as an intern at Riot Games in Santa Monica. I really fell in love with the city. That's around 2011. That's when the startup scene is really blowing up here as well. So I attended a lot of pitch events and got to know some incubators, accelerators, founders, investors. And so I moved to LA after I graduated. Instead of taking on that offer to join the video game company, I decided to start my own company.
Okay, cool. And was that Outer was your first company, or because I think you?
No, Outer was not my first company.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say.
My first company is called Prospectwise, the reason it was founded is because I grew up in a small business family. My mom, started restaurants. Actually started as a waitress, and then worked her way up to, not speaking a word of English to now owning, quite a few restaurants across the country.
Wow.
But when I was growing up, I, especially in Huntsville, I saw that she was struggling with technology. Most small business owners are just not tech savvy. And as a computer engineer myself, I thought I could do something about that. So I coded a program to help her with customer retention and marketing, especially in the survey and feedback space. And then that was the idea that got picked up by an accelerator here in LA called Launchpad. And that's where I started building the first company, really learning, how to build a startup, right? From the ground up, hiring, fundraising, sales. I had to walk into a bunch of restaurants, literally door to door. That was kind of like the beginning of my entrepreneur journey. It was kind of a crash course of many what to do, but also what not to do. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
So what ended up happening with your first company?
So I went through about 4 to 5 years of extreme ups and downs, went through a pretty ugly founder dispute fallout. Eventually was able to save it, turned it around. And now it's just a profitable cash flowing, SaaS enterprise startup. That's run by a pretty small team. I'm still on the board, but I'm no longer operationally involved. But it's, I definitely raised some venture capital for it, but it never really hit that venture, growth that we were all looking for. But the investors were, are satisfied with, first of all, I didn't really, flame out when it could have, a few times. And a few of the investors actually decided to invest in Outer, which turned out to be a good move.
Okay, cool. So tell, for anyone who doesn't know, what is Outer?
So Outer is, I would like to say it's the first sustainable consumer brand for outdoor living. With a core focus on material science, on this community aspect, building an authentic shopping experience for home furniture, home goods, starting with outdoor furniture. So an easy way to understand it is you can basically buy outdoor furniture that has quality that's better than some of the name brands like Precision Hardware, some of the Italian designer brands like B&B Italia, but at DTC prices, right? Because we're cutting out the middleman. But what's really unique is that we have gone to the source of the materials and how to build outdoor furniture from ground up. A lot of people don't know about this, which is outdoor furniture specifically has to use synthetic materials, man-made materials, so plastics, metal, etc. You can't really use just any wood that you would see in your living room furniture because it's constantly exposed to the elements, right? UV, rain, oxidation, etc. And so, how do you create materials that can last in those environments, but it's also comfortable to the touch? Because at the end of the day, it's furniture that you sit on and you touch, but also sustainable, like eco-friendly, recyclable, and all of that. So that's been the core challenge that we've taken on from day one. At the end of the day, we are a brand about helping people enjoy the great outdoors. And so we need to take part in protecting it. And we go through extend, lengths to basically making sure that everything we do is sustainable.
Yeah, that's great. So when thinking about you building your company, and essentially, originally for your first company, you're kind of scratching your mom's itch of she's like, I have a problem here, and you were helping. And now with Outer, I was reading a bit about how essentially you were looking at your cousin's company, I think, where you helped him get on Wayfair with his outdoor furniture, and you were helping him, and then you just decided to start your own using sustainable materials. Is that the right story? And if so, can you add some details in there?
Yeah, that's right. So my cousin has a factory in Zhejiang, my hometown. And he's been basically the OEM, right? So white label production factory for retailers and e-commerce sellers in America. But these are the typical, I like to call them disposable outdoor furniture that you see, kind of like the wicker type that you see in a lot of, yards, everywhere. Maybe hotels everywhere, pretty much. Yeah. That's probably in disarray, right? Whether it's dirty or the wicker is falling apart. Everybody has that mental image, right? But yeah, that's what he did. And I was still building my first company, prospect wise. And I basically took a summer vacation to visit his factory, found out, that he was basically working with razor thin margins, being the, supplier for a lot of these retailers. So basically I told him, hey, you know what? I can do this for you. I can, help you sell your own brand on Amazon, on Wayfair, on these marketplaces. And yeah, I did exactly that. And, it became, I think, one of the fastest growing outdoor furniture vendors on Wayfair back in 2016, this was. And that's how I kind of stumbled across this industry. And then from there, I found out, all problems that are associated with the industry and also the opportunities.
Mm-hmm. So what did you do next after you started seeing all these problems? Did you go raise money, or did you go through an accelerator? What was the next steps?
I mean, so the first thing I saw was, wow, a lot of people interested in outdoor furniture. I didn't know, there was such a huge demand for this kind of products. But if you you can go to Amazon right now and type in patio furniture. The funny thing is you'll see a lot of options, but they all look exactly the same.
They do. I just shopped for this. They were all the same at different price points. I went to even Overstock and everywhere. I'm like, these are all the same pieces of material, just a little bit different.
They come from the same factories in China, just branded very differently. For example, my cousin's factory, they actually provide the same goods for different brands and selling the same thing. And they're sometimes competing with each other on Amazon, right? And so, and the prices are different. So you don't know whether, it's, the material, what kind of wicker, why are they different? What's the difference between steel and aluminum construction? Okay, should I get umbrella? Should I get polyester fabric? this is a lot of information and misinformation. And
yeah, the wrong keywords are added to the listing. They're like, this was organic, humanely raised fabric. So, and I'm like, oh, got me. I'll spend $20
what does
more.
That mean?
I don't know.
Yeah, what does that mean? But yeah, so exactly, that's a problem, right? And then they all use the same photography, which is funny because they, like you can tell like they use the same photos. They probably Photoshop some of it out. So yeah, that was the problem. And another thing that I noticed was the customer complaints. So if you go to Amazon, Wayfair, you look at all the 1, 2, 3-star reviews, they're essentially repeating the same things. Specifically for like take for example an outdoor sofa. I don't know what you shop for, but like if it's an outdoor sofa, okay, the cushion is so hard to keep clean. It falls apart after a few months. The frame is kind of deteriorating. So basically, it's just like a really it paints a really dark picture of like just the product itself is inferior, right? And it's a pain because a lot of people, they buy the kind of stuff they think they can make a great use out of it, but the fact is, after one weekend, you forgot to take the cushions in, or you forgot to cover it up. It's basically covered in, dust, bird poop, mold, whatever, like, you name it, right? So you don't.
That's all mine right now. I can see our backyard over here, and I'm looking at all these beautiful white little cushions that were nice looking. Not anymore.
Photogenic for sure, right? But in reality, it's so hard to make use of it, and so it ends up just being sitting in the corner. Sometimes when your guests visit, you're kind of ashamed of it. You kind of cover it up, and that problem is not just pervasive in, let's call, like the more affordable kind of furniture. Even if you spend upwards of $10,000, $20,000 at the RHs of the world, you have the same issues. It's just so hard to. Maybe they can last longer, they don't fall apart, but they still get very dirty. They get very wet. You still cover it with a rain tarp. And once that goes on, you don't want to take it off because, you just want to go outside for a coffee. You want to sit in it, for a few minutes, but you have to spend 10 minutes just removing, cover. And so that's a huge problem. And it sounds like a really easy problem, but no one has thought about how to solve for that. And everyone is complaining about the same thing. So given that, I saw that, the rising demand, the problem, and everything looks the same. And lastly, there is no recognizable brand for outdoor furniture. You can name cars, you can name TVs, you can name computers. You can't really name any outdoor furniture brands. And so that was the opportunity that we saw as, it's a leveling playing field, because chances are most people are buying their outdoor furniture from, like you said, the Costco's, the Amazon's, the Wayfairs, or the Pottery Barns, the Crate & Barrels, the RHs, IKEAs, right? But these are all retailers and platforms and marketplaces. These are not brands that really focus on designing better products at its core, from the material, from the design, the innovation, and the experience. And so we thought it's a level playing field for us. We can come in and really put 100% of our energy and money and focus and resources in developing fundamentally better materials, fundamentally better products, solving those pain points that we just mentioned, and build a brand just for outdoor living.
So how did you go about, sourcing and finding and testing high quality materials? And I'm also thinking maybe if you were like a little bit more of an outsider, like you didn't have ties to China and you didn't know, okay, my cousin's, manufacturing spot's a good one. Like, how would I even go about finding, good materials like that and sourcing them?
Yeah. So it turns out that, outdoor furniture is quite a specific category, even within furniture as a whole. For example, I'll give you this example of, if you're just talking about general furniture, most like indoor furniture, even in LA where I'm currently residing, you can find, like 100-200 studios, factories that can produce furniture, right? But hardly any of them, probably, closer to zero, can produce outdoor furniture. And it's because of the materials in the supply chain. Like I alluded to earlier, it's really hard to find synthetic materials, domestically that can be used in outdoor furniture. All of that is concentrated in Asia. A lot of it is in China. And so, and also the kind of like the skilled labor, for example, the wicker type, which is very popular in America. It's all weather wicker. It's actually a kind of plastic. It's not a natural material that, despite popular belief, because natural materials can't be used outside. The all weather wicker is really, it can only be handmade. It's hand woven. It can't really be done with machines. And that kind of skill set is only really available, in Asia, mainly in China and Vietnam. And so there are a few challenges around, kind of like the barrier to entry to the industry. And a lot of that's in China. So, fortunately, I have a family connection there, and that's how we got started. And that's how I even, knew about this industry in the first place. But I also saw that there's a lot of opportunities to really improve upon what they already were doing. Mainly they were taking order requests. I mean, if you really think about it, like the retailer here in America are picking what's available from the suppliers, right? They're just looking through a catalog and seeing, okay, well, for this season, these are the styles that are in. The problem is the manufacturers being in Asia. Now in Asia, if any of you have been to Asia, especially in China, people don't have houses with big backyards. People live in apartment buildings, in high rises. They are not customers of outdoor furniture themselves. Yeah. In this case, my cousin, he hasn't really used his own products. They don't really know the pain points. And so even this kind of like loop of, the retailers looking to the suppliers, you're literally just copying whatever styles out there. That's why you're seeing the same products, right? Mm-hmm. Over and over again. And they don't really get the pain points. And the retailer's not thinking about the pain points because they're just thinking about the exterior design, the color, the style, just like the indoor collection. But the truth is the outdoor, you're dealing with so many more variables, right? Like if you live in New York versus LA versus Miami versus Seattle, the product works very differently. If you're working with an indoor sofa, that's not a problem. Whether you're in Hong Kong or Tokyo or Chicago, it's the same, right? Like it's so that's a problem. And I saw an opportunity to really go from a customer-centric, customer-first approach and solving these actual problems. I'll give you a concrete example. Probably too many of us are familiar with. We jokingly call it the wet bottom syndrome. And you're seeing this innocuous looking sofa, right? You go in there just for a rest. You're sitting down for a few minutes, and after 20 seconds, you're starting to notice that the cushion is wet, right? Now you have wet pants, you have a wet bottom. So we jokingly call it wet bottom syndrome. So that's a problem that many people can relate to. And the solution that the industry came up with to date has been a bulky rain tarp that goes on, that collects dust and bird poop, and you don't want to touch it. And you just end up just leaving the cover on the sofa, or you carry the cushions into your garage and you don't want to carry it out. You end up just sitting on a naked frame, which is uncomfortable and defeats the whole purpose, which is also dirty, right? And so we just came up with I think it's a pretty clever solution, which is we're calling the outer shell. That's how outer was first known. It's literally a simple waterproof piece of fabric that's sewn into the cushion itself. So when you want to use it, you just roll it open. Once you're done with it, at the end of the night, you just roll it back and cover it. And once it's in a covered state, there is a little handle on the top of the cushion that's part of the cover itself that makes carrying the cushions inside very easily. So if you live in an area where with inclement weather, it's really easy to carry everything in and out without stacking them up like pizza boxes and it's like a tripping hazard, right? So it's the little details that we actually patented it, and it's such a simple invention that no one has ever thought of. But once we came out with it, everyone is like, oh yeah, that solves my problem. I don't have to ever use rain tarps again. I don't have to, carry in and out like in multiple trips. I can do that in one go. And this is one innovation that has solved a huge problem of people just don't use their outdoor furniture despite how great they are. So that's the lens that we take into the supply, the manufacturing side. Yeah.
I love that. I love the idea of like simple innovations can actually be like what the market needs. And they're just like overlooked. People are like, no, why do we need any patents around something like this? And then here you all come along.
You hit the nail on the head. And a lot of people ask us, what kind of company we are. And if you think about it, like most furniture companies, they're really design driven. They're really aesthetic driven. They're kind of more like fashion, right? You're not really solving for any problems, but at Outer, we're very much a problem solution driven company. More like a Dyson or like even like a tech software company, right? Because that's how we truly think about designing every product. I'll give you one other really clear example. Even one of the latest products that we released, it's a blanket. Now you ask like, okay,
outdoor blanket, I guess.
Yeah, an outdoor
Okay.
blanket, but what problem do you have? It's just to keep you warm, right? Well, like I mentioned, I grew up in the South, and the reason I didn't get outside for and during the season I can, namely summer, fall, wasn't because of the temperature. It was because their mosquitoes were biting.
Yes. Yeah.
A lot of bugs. So our blanket is actually bug repellent. It's our bug repellent blanket. You can go check it out right now, liveouter.com, and then you can look for the bug repellent blanket. It uses a technology called Insect Shield. It's a company that really has this basically unharmful material that's woven into the fabric itself. It's being used by the U.S. military as we speak. It repels any blood-sucking insects, and it's actually baked into our blanket. And so, it's one little innovation. You don't have to drape it. You can just put it like next to you and actually repels mosquitoes around you. So even in the summer, you can just put it as like a decorative piece on your outdoor stuff, and it actually keeps mosquitoes away.
I need that here in Texas right away. That sounds awesome. I always think about that. I'm like, if I had a blanket just to put over me, it's nice out. I want to be out here, but I don't want to get eaten alive tonight.
Yep.
Wow.
So
that's really cool. So, okay, when thinking about earlier, we were talking about people buying in different areas. If you're in Chicago, you have one set of weather. If you're in Florida, you have another. California, you just have beautiful all year long. But I saw you had an idea around neighborhood showroom, which I thought was brilliant. And also I was like, that's like a whole separate company in and of itself developing that as well. But I want to hear, if you can tell everyone, what is neighborhood showroom and how did you even think about this? Because it seems so different than anything I've heard.
Yeah. If you can make a penny every time an investor asks me, hey, is that a separate company?
Yeah, I was thinking that. I was like, this is, seemed like that.
So that's an astute, observation for sure. So, okay, neighborhood showroom for, your audience that doesn't know what it is. It's a concept of turning our customers' backyards into real life showrooms. So instead of going to a furniture store, you will come to our website, you will type in your zip code, and then we'll show you who near you actually has outer in their backyards. And you can browse photos, you can get inspiration, but most importantly, you can schedule an appointment to go physically visit that person. It's kind of like Airbnb meets retail. It's how a lot of people like to think about it.
I almost called it Airbnb earlier, but I was like, is that too much? I don't know. But yeah, that's a good description.
Yeah, you got it. I mean, it was actually the original inspiration. I was an Airbnb host and the guest, and I loved it. Not just because of the utility of it, like replacing a hotel, but it's really the experience, right? You get to meet the host, you get to kind of know the local, wherever you're visiting, more holistically, and so it's really the social and the community aspect that really drew me in. And very much so, neighborhood showroom, that's what we found as well. Currently, we have over 1,000 locations. Wow,
1,000. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's actually way over 1,000 now. So if you, wherever you are, if you're in New York, you type in your zip code, we have a few in Manhattan, we have a few in Brooklyn, we have a few in New Jersey across the bank. And I remember this one, one of my favorite showroom, we call them hosts, people who volunteer to do this. Scott, he has a beautiful rooftop neighborhood showroom in Tribeca. And it's a gorgeous, condo penthouse, and he's basically availing his rooftop, which has like a 360 view of the entire city, to be a showroom. And so he's hosting basically would-be buyers of outer at his home, right? And instead of, if you're visiting his home, instead of like dealing with a salesperson who is trained to, sell you on this product, we basically tell Scott not to worry about selling it. Just talk to the visitor as you would any neighbor or friend, right? Like tell them about how you truly feel about the product. What are the pluses, minuses? And, it's a very neighborly kind of experience. And they, Scott gets compensated, but it's not with a commission because it doesn't matter if you buy or not. We want you to have a great experience and really to see, touch, and feel the product in person. And he basically gets paid a flat fee because he's availing, obviously, his space and his time for that, 15 minutes. But, sometimes the visit go a lot longer. And we've actually had many stories of visitors becoming friends with the host. We've had dates happening. We have business deals that were cemented over visiting, a piece of sofa. And that's been the pleasant surprise about building that community up from the ground up.
I think we need a reality TV show just around neighborhood showroom. Just kind of see what's happening. I want to know.
There's so many just great stories. I mean, I hear back from our team, community team all the time about, this host, writing a handwritten note for a visitor for our team, like I said, like the dates happen. We're actually thinking about creating more content around that, right? Because I do think, especially after 2 years of isolation through the pandemic, people are desiring that human connection and, this return to, like even people who don't talk to neighbors and, for the longest time, they do during the pandemic because like they're literally the only people you see anymore, especially in the onset of the pandemic, if you remember that. And so, yeah, I think there's definitely something that's really wholesome and authentic about that. So we're excited about maybe taking a creative spin on the content piece. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool. When you first brought this idea up, was there any pushback? Because my first thoughts is, I don't want to go to someone's house if they're crazy. It's the same thing as Airbnb, same thing as Uber, like all the early days where you kind of have to like come over that, early day fear. Was there anything that you kind of knew just from those two companies launching where you're like, okay, to get past that, let's skip ahead by doing this in our marketing? Or how did you approach that? Yeah.
So, I mean, you kind of answered the kind of like the main pushback, which is people have, companies have trailblazed this, right? It's not a new idea. I think it would be a different world if Airbnb did not exist. But if you really think about it, visiting a stranger's place for furniture purchase is a behavior that already exists in the world. Like, namely, I remember buying my Herman Miller office chair on Craigslist.
Yeah.
Like when
Even
I was out
sketchier.
of college. Even sketchier, right? It's really just a unrefined experience, to put it lightly. To do that, I've hosted, plenty of people to, on like classifieds and, people who come and check, pick up, like I just sold a set of, like old dining set, right? So it's all kind of happening already organically. And so we're really just building a more polished, great customer experience layer on top of it, just like how Airbnb has solved the couch surfing, the awkward handshake with the cash exchange, in that case, in our case, it's really just, hey, like meet like-minded people, like browse homes near you that reflect the design styles that you, whether it's Mediterranean, modern, whatever, to, visiting a neighbor. I mean, like, again, buying outdoor furniture, you really want to see that this product works in my area. Like what will work in Alabama would be very different than LA. Like, my two homes would be very different. And so I want to know that this thing does last, after a year of use, 2 years of use, many years of use. I want to talk to a real neighbor that can speak to that, and so that's really, it's kind of worked itself out just because like the behavior is actually surprisingly in the beginning, very accepted, if not welcomed. And in this case, we've scaled it to over 1,000 locations. So we definitely know that this works and people, have no issues with it.
Yeah. The blessing when you're not first to market. How do you think about the ROI with this program? Do you ever look at a host and you're like, okay, these conversions for this girl right here, not so great. What's she doing? We're going to cut her out of our program. Or how do you think about the return on this?
I mean, you look at the ROI, that's you look at the I, the investment, if there's costs associated with it, then, we might have a expected return on it. But the truth is 100% of our hosts are all paid real customers. And that was important from day one because we didn't want people who are doing this, they're doing it for ulterior motives or like the wrong reasons. Namely, this is not it's not even like Airbnb or Uber where it's a little bit more commercialized and transactional, right? People do it professionally to make money, right? Like this is not the case for us. It's really, truly a community of believers in Aller. They like the product so much that they want to do this. The cash that they make is really just a nice bonus, but we just did a survey and one stat that jumped out was, first of all, 97% of all the hosts would recommend the hosting experience to their friends and family. So they're like, oh, you should do this too, because it's so much fun. I can meet people, and the second thing is most people like it because they feel like they're part of the community, the brand. And truth is, a lot of our customers spend a lot of money and effort in kind of like renovating their backyard and outdoor spaces. And, our product's not cheap, right? So it kind of like there's like a show off aspect to it too, as well. Like I really want to share my space and, show it to, be the kind of like the best yard of the street kind of thing. And so
Yeah.
there are a lot of emotive reasons why people are doing it, rather than, getting paid, right? So
Yeah.
to your question, ROI wise, from day one, it's positive because we haven't really burned a cent to stand up this program. All 1,000 showrooms have been profitable from inception, essentially. So we don't have that. So no, we're not going to say like, hey, you're not performing off
All
platform.
right, Judy, you're out.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
No, not yet. Yeah.
So, I mean, throughout this conversation, I can tell that you definitely think big, think outside the box, definitely kind of, pushing certain things like materials and, how to actually build a community and do referrals and, neighborhood selling. Like I can already tell, what are you now betting on next? Like what big things are you investing in? What are you trying out that you're not sure if it's really going to work out?
That's a good question. I really think, given the audience and the kind of like the theme of the podcast as well, a lot of people are touting the death of retail. Not something I believe in. I think it's an evolution of retail. How does physical retail evolve? I think neighborhood showroom is just but one of many experiences. Maybe it's a new experience that people can go and, at the end of the day, it's about serving our customers and what they want, right? And I know a lot of our customers still want that traditional retail experience.
Yep.
But maybe that can be done a little bit differently, right? And so we're definitely thinking about, physical retail and how to do that differently. Just like we've kind of applied that same kind of, outside the box thinking to the materials, design, the shopping itself. So without disclosing too much detail, we're still kind of, it's still in the oven, so to speak. We are really excited about physical retail. I'm particularly excited about, commercial opportunities. I think outdoor furniture category is very interesting compared to a lot of other, let's say, DTC brands, is the fact that it's applicable to businesses as well. I mean, if you're in LA, you'll see all the restaurants have outdoor dining options now. So outdoor furniture used to be nice to have, now are necessities for restaurants, right? Office buildings, hotels, shopping centers, anything that has a communal public space is really just asking for nicer furniture that requires less maintenance. And so that is also an area that we're really, really excited about. So working with maybe hospitality partners, real estate partners to really get into that channel as well, that we're really excited about. And the last piece, I think it's really going back to, the sustainability piece of it. Terry, my co-founder, and I founded the business because we believe that, a business is the best platform to drive positive change for the world. We both truly believe in that. We are in the business of inviting people outside and, enjoying what the great outdoors has to offer, which means if in 50 years, greenhouse effect is so severe and, ice caps are melting and, wildfires are blazing everywhere, we wouldn't have any outdoor space to enjoy, right? And so it behooves us, even the cold-blooded capitalist investor, right? Like we don't have any of those, thankfully, on our cap table, but, it behooves us to really, think ahead and think, how do we invite more people outside and really, instead of beating them over the head and say, hey, you should recycle, you should really be environmentally conscious. Why don't we just make it a great experience to get people outside and they enjoy being outside? In return, they will care about protecting the environment, right? And it doesn't take a trip to the national park. It doesn't take a grandiose, mountain climbing trip to really appreciate that. All it takes is one step outside in your backyard, every day to start appreciating that. So concretely, we're taking a pretty serious commitment and investment into material science. We really want to create the next generation of green materials that can be used in the home space, which is out of all the industries. If you think about apparel, if you think about electronics technology, every company is really pushing for sustainable materials. And whether it's greenwashing or not, I think the desire is there. A lot of companies are doing that. And I think, no one is really carrying that banner in the home space. And I think that's a huge miss because furniture is one of the, I don't know if it's the most polluting, industries, but it's certainly very pollution heavy, both in the manufacturing, the harvesting of raw materials, the transportation. I think I've read a study somewhere that says I think Americans throw out like 10 million tons of furniture every year. IKEA, Costco. I mean, so I think it's a huge problem, and I think more people, more our peers and, competitors, I wish everybody can really, join in to think about, how to create sustainable products. And I think it comes from the source, which is materials. And so we want to do a lot more in material research and finding the best fabrics that's not just comfortable and performance driven, water repellent and all of that, but also sustainable.
The B2B angle, like how have you had to kind of shift your thinking when it comes to going from, selling straight to consumers to now you're approaching hotels and, apartment buildings or whatever it may be?
Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, we are a product and problem solution driven company. So, a lot of people say, hey, Outer is a DTC brand. In fact, we were rated as one of the fastest growing DTC brands. But I think that's a misnomer. I think DTC is a great channel, right? But that's just it. At the end of the day, we're thinking about creating products that can better the lives of customers, but also businesses, right? I think, for example, hotels, they spend a lot of money and human resource to basically take care of their, kind of like the rooftop furniture or like the swimming pool furniture. They spend hours each day just carrying the cushions in and out. Those are the problems that they also face. And so we really think as long as there's a problem somewhere that our products can solve for, then that's our opportunity. Because the truth is, not many people in that industry are thinking through the lens. Again, it's the same thing as the consumer industry. Like not a lot of outdoor furniture, albeit in the B2B, in kind of like the commercial side, there are a lot more established players. The Brown Jordans of the world, the Didons of the world, they built a respectable brand and, they work with a lot of hospitality partners. But I don't think they're quite thinking about the way that we are, which is, hey, like hotel operator, what are the problems that you are facing on a daily basis that's costing you, that's diluting your customer, your guest experiences. So that's also a lens that we're looking at that problem instead of, competing on price and competing on style. It's the same kind of angle that we're taking to that industry as well.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, so when thinking about, starting Outer, all the experiences you've had, what's the one thing, like one piece of advice that you always think about now, or maybe a piece of advice you would give yourself when starting the company? So it can be from someone else or yourself, your choice.
Got to think about that one. There's so many.
Or you can say a couple if you want to. That's fine too.
Yeah, I think, when I reflect on the two companies that I've built, it sounds cliche, but it always comes back to people. And the first one, I mentioned that I had a founder dispute. I had a three-way founder situation, 3 co-founders, equal splits, not a lot of, clear ownership, overlapping skill sets, non-overlapping values, you name it, right? Like made all the mistakes there. And so, with Outer, that's the mistake that I avoided. Fortunately, I found a great team. I found an awesome co-founder where we have complementary skill sets. Terry, a much more talented co-founder than I am. He's a chief design officer. He was IDEO trained, was a former head furniture designer at Pottery Barn, is basically the furniture expert, right? I didn't know anything about furniture.
No wonder your furniture is so beautiful. I was looking at it, I was like, wow, this is nicer than Pottery Barn.
Thank you. He's going for that, what he calls a transitional look. So like even our wicker collection, you'll see that it's a pretty classic frame, but if you look at the legs, they're like really, it's like piece of jewelry. It's like very modern. It's shiny. It's stainless steel. And so, anyway, I think he has skills that I don't, and I have skills that he doesn't, but we have totally overlapping values. The fact that we want to build, the first sustainable, furniture brand, the fact that we really want to leverage this authentic, model with building community instead of just going for like hardcore salespeople and sales team. Right. So I think reflecting on that, I think is really just like finding a partner that really have overlapping values and non-overlapping skills. That's number one. And then when it comes to, the core team, my management team, my executive team is just so great. I mean, everyone is just very good at what they do. Every single one of them is stronger than I am in their respective areas. And really, it's just like about letting go and just not being the bottleneck for them. That's been told, and that's been kind of advised, to me and been taught to me by many other founders and investors. But in practice, it's really, really hard. And so, like, how do you actually do that? And really just building a great relationship with them, even like personally, so you can learn to like go and trust them as a person to start. And then in practice, it'll be easier because then you will trust their decision in their respective fields. Anyway, that's a mouthful, but yeah, it just comes back to people.
Yep, I agree, and I love it. Well, Jake, thank you so much for chatting today. It's really been a pleasure. I love learning what you're doing at Outer and all the cool things you guys are up to. Where can people learn more about Outer?
So it's liveouter.com, or you can follow us on Instagram, liveouter as well. But thank you for the opportunity, Stephanie. It's a really fun interview.
Thanks so much.